Yo, it's Bike Guy, and today we're going to build up my GT Karakoram. I have no idea if that's how you say it. That's how I'm going to say it for this video. Let me know how you actually say it. But anyways, we're going to be building up this bike today because I am racing this bike in the Vintage Mountain Bike Criterium section of the Cactus Cup out in Arizona in middle of March. So in about a month, I am going to be racing this bike in the Vintage Mountain Bike class for the Cactus Cup mountain bike race. So I'm really excited for that, and I need to get this thing built up so that I can do some training and prepare for this event. So to catch you guys up to where we're at now with the frame stripped down and ready to be built up, this whole process started with everything on this bike being seized. Now, I didn't take any videos of us getting the seized seat post out or the seized bottom bracket out because it was an absolute mission. I did it at work with the help of my coworkers. We were able to put the seat post in a vise and use brute force to get it out. It was not fun, and it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I need to video this. It would have made great content, I'll tell you that much, but I didn't video it, so it sucked. You can trust me on that. But we got everything stripped down and we got everything cleaned up. The next thing that I proceeded to do was service the fork on this bike. So it came with a RockShox Quadra fork, and I got that all serviced up for this build. Now, in all the research that I did on RockShox Quadra, I learned that there is an upper and a lower section, and upon disassembling the fork, I got a little confused because I couldn't figure out a way that the uppers and lowers detached from one another. Typically, there's an Allen bolt at the bottom of the cavity where the bushing came out from, and once you undo that bolt, then the uppers and lowers detach from one another. I shot a flashlight down in there. I didn't see a bolt there. So I don't think the uppers and lowers detach on this RockShox Quadra fork. This is most likely just a low-end RockShox Quadra fork that only has movement and absorption from the shock through that bushing system in the upper part of the fork. Despite my confusion, I was able to disassemble the fork as much as I possibly could. Then I cleaned everything up inside and outside, and even got my Scotch Brite pad stuck in the fork. But no worries, I got it out basically by just using two screwdrivers like chopsticks. I was able to get that out of the fork, and then I was able to reassemble everything. Now, if you are servicing a fork yourself, it's important that you use silicone-based grease when putting all of these things back together. Regular grease will eat away at these silicone parts, such as the rubber elongated bushings, essentially, that are in this fork. So, cleaned everything up. I lubricated everything with some of that silicone-based grease. I got my silicone-based grease just at my local hardware store in the plumbing section. That's where I was able to find the silicone-based grease. And yeah, after I got everything back together, the fork felt significantly better than it did when I first tested it. I don't think that this fork is super high-end because I couldn't see a way that the uppers detach from the lowers, so I'm pretty sure its only sort of cushion and movement is from the bushing that is inside the fork. So I know it's not super high-end. I know it's not going to be, the best mountain bike fork out there, but it definitely feels significantly better to when I received it. Then the next thing that I did was I added some jewelry to this bike. We got it fitted with a Chris King headset. This headset I got at my local bike co-op for $70. The reason why I ended up getting this headset for this bike is because it almost perfectly matches this like faded purplish pink colorway that this bike has sort of turned into. So because of that, I was like, this is a must. I have to get this headset for this bike. And in the somewhat near future, I'm going to do a rebuild on this bike where I end up putting a rigid fork in it and make it more of a commuter style bike, which is typically the bikes that I like to have in my lineup. So I upgraded the headset for the future rebuild of this bike. And the nice thing is that crown races are very easy to switch to other forks, especially if you have the proper crown race removal tool. It makes it so easy to switch the crown race from one fork to another fork. So this headset isn't going to be only usable with, the RockShox that I'm going to put on it. The last thing that I've done to get it to where we're at right now is this morning I sprayed some rust converter, frame saver, whatever you want to call it, inside of the tubes. Because of how seized everything was, I wanted to make sure that I was able to get all of the inner tubes cleaned up and rust gone and blah blah blah, because the inside of this bike was so seized and so bad that I just wanted to make sure that this frame was going to continue to last forever. So I sprayed some frame saver into the bike. Now it wasn't a frame saver brand, but it's essentially the same thing. It's a sort of rust converter that I sprayed in there. I shook the frame around, moved it around to make sure that I was covering all of the inner tubes and getting that rust converter to coat all of those surfaces. And then I let it sit for a couple of hours, and now we are going to open it up, try to drain any excess fluid that's in this bike still, and then we're going to build it up. So yeah, this is the frame. Let's turn it into a bike. And this is the wheel set and tire combo that I'm going to be running for the GT build. So for the front hub, we have a Dior LX hub laced to probably a Ritchie rim, I would say. The rim doesn't have any decals, so I have no idea what the rim is, but reminds me a lot of my Dior DX rear hub with a Ritchie rim. So potentially a Ritchie rim, no idea. But really nice front wheel, and we're going to be running some Kenda El Mocos on it. When I picked up this tire set, I picked it up used from my bike co-op, and I didn't realize that both tires were different sizes. So on the front, we have a 26 by 2.35, which I did not realize that it was going to be a 26 by 2.35 on the front. And on the back, we have a 26 by 2.0. So let me know in the comments your thoughts on running the fatter tire in the front or back. I would think that it would be better to run it in the back, but also I'm not sure if the 2.35 will fit with the rear chainstays. So with that all said, I might end up having to run the fatter tire in the front, which in theory could help with traction and climbs. I have heard that running a bigger, knobbier tire in the front can actually help with those things. So it might actually be beneficial to run the bigger tire in the front. But let me know in the comments your thoughts on that. As for the rear wheel here, it is no idea what the hub is, and it is a Matrix 550 rim with that Kenda El Moco 26 by 2.1 rear tire. It is a Mega Drive freewheel 7-speed. I'm keeping this on the bike because I like the gear range that it has. I'm going to be going 1x on it, and so having a bigger gear range in the rear is going to help me because I don't know what this course looks like, and I want to be able to and not have to push my bike during the race. So I like the gearing on this wheel, and that's why we're going to keep this wheel as the rear wheel for it. Okay, guys, to get ahead of the allegations, I spilled my girlfriend's matcha on my pants earlier, and it also spilled on my spacers and top cap. So those are in they're drying in my back pocket. Okay. I mean, look at the inside. Can you see the inside of that? I don't know. Yeah, you can. See the inside? It still looks pretty rusty, but I'm hoping that that rust converter that I put in there will at least stop the spread of rust. So, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. So, first things first, we're going to throw the fork back in this bad boy. Beautiful. And then we will throw the top cap on. Oh, there we go. Starting to move it. This is not recommended for how to get a headset on. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Boom. Buttery smooth. Alright, I do not recommend doing that to your own Chris King headset. I'm going to go with the big one first. And then I'm going to pull out the stem. We're just going to be using this Pro Max 1 1/8 31/8 clamp stem. So yeah, nothing special with the stem. Oh my god. You know, a wise man once told me that the best mechanics don't drop any tools. So you can sit there and think about what that means for me. That's fine. I was going to say I'm not in love with the stem, but, it's fine. We are going to need one more spacer. We could probably go with a smaller spacer, but, I do want to be able to bring these bars up as high as possible. Because the frame's not, like, technically too small for me, but it is, a little small. Damn, no way. That doesn't reach. Damn, I gotta go a little freaking smaller. Alright. I gotta say, that Chris King headset looks gorgeous. Now that we got that in, it's time to put these wheels on so that I can continue working on the bike. Because without a bike stand, having wheels on your bike makes it so much easier. Yeah. I don't know if I could fit 2.3s. Oh man, I'm already rubbing. I don't think that's sitting in the dropout right. If I'm already rubbing. Okay, so here's the issue. The wheel is just slightly out of true, which causes it to rub right there. But the distance isn't equal between the chainstays. So there's like way more room on this side than there is on this side. So the wheel is sitting in the dropout correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tighten the drive side. I don't know, maybe a quarter of a turn and try to pull the wheel over towards the drive side. So that's what I'm going to do. The fact that I don't have a truing stand is going to be the most difficult part about this. To re-dish a wheel, the correct way would be to fully take the tension out of both sides of the wheel and then basically reset the wheel to a center position. You can do some minor dishing of the wheel by tightening the side that you want to pull the wheel towards and loosening the side that you want the wheel to move away from. So in theory, what I was trying to do could have worked, but there is a point where you could over tighten the drive side and the non-drive side could be too loose and make the wheel unsafe. So you can kind of make it work like this, but it's not necessarily recommended to do it like this. Okay, I have come to a solution that I don't think I would fully recommend. Um, so as I said, I wanted the wider gear range of the other cassette, and that's why I wasn't going to throw on this Dior DX rear hub. But because the other wheel is, for whatever reason, dished super far to the non-drive side, and going through and redishing that is going to be a pain in my ass, especially without a truing stand. I am going to use 7 speeds of an 8-speed cassette to give me basically, I think it's going to be like a 12 to 34 tooth now. So very similar gear range. And because 6, 7, and 8 speeds all use the same chain, the spacing should be the same on the cassette. So it should work in theory. And I used, this was the lock ring that came with that cassette, and it's a bit smaller than the cassette that I took off of this Dior DX rear wheel. So I'm going to use that, and that should keep everything in place. It feels like it's going to run smooth. So that's how we're going to run it. And if I end up having major issues, I will get a 7-speed cassette that has a wide range for this wheel. I know this tube is comically too big, because it's meant for 2.2 to 2.5. So the tube is going to be ginormous. And the reason I have a 2.2 to 2.25 tube like this is because I have Maxxis hookworms that I was going to run on my Alpenstar, but that frame cracked. So I will not be running those tires on anything in the near future, unfortunately. I'll tell you what, this tire was one of the hardest to get to like hold its bead throughout the putting on process. So hopefully this time it goes a bit smoother. Oh yeah, baby. Woo! Oh yeah. Boom! No more rubbing. And an 8-speed, 7 speeds of an 8-speed cassette. So, that took terribly too long to come to this solution where we're at now. But we're going to keep trucking along. Okay, it's handlebar time. And then I think we're calling it quits for today. But the handlebars that we're going to be throwing on this beauty are these Ritchie Coyotes. So we got some Ritchie Coyotes details. They are 800 millimeters wide with 35 millimeter rise and 25 degrees of sweep. So these things are going to be super rad. Dang. That's going to be rad. All right. Cool. All right, guys, we are back. We have a seat post, seat, and clamp all on the bike now. I am not thrilled with the seat post choice, but it was all the bike co-op had that would fit. And because the last seat post was seized in there, once you get to like right here with the seat post, it starts to get stuck again. So yeah, there were some other issues too. So this is the only seat post that's going to work. New bottom bracket, $18, 68 by 110. I don't want to find the thread forward, and then it threads in the opposite way that you would think it threads in. So that's always important to remember. All right. Boom. Cranks. We're going to be throwing on these Trouvant cranks. I wire wheeled them at work, so they are raw metal color. And I didn't clear coat them or anything because I kind of want them to patina a little bit to match the rest of the frame. Chainring, we're going to go with a race face narrow wide chainring, 36 tooth up front. So yeah, these are going to be cool. Let's get them on the bike. Now it's time to do the derailleur. We're keeping it with the stock group set, the Dior LX that came originally on this bike. So nice long cage derailleur. This thing's going to be sweet. So typically I like to size the chain from the biggest gear to the biggest gear, find out where it would connect, and then add 2 links. So go right there is where it would be. We're going to go add 1 link because we have a quick link here. What's up, guys? We are back to finish the GT today. We had a lot of issues that were definitely unforeseen throughout this bike build. I thought that once I got everything unseized from this bike, rebuilding it would be smooth as pie because I had already faced the hardest thing that could happen to an old bike, which is everything being seized on. I was sorely mistaken because we had way more issues with the build than I wanted, but we're back, and today should be relatively smooth sailing and at an easy part. So, to talk about the final pieces that we're throwing on the bike to finish it up, we are going to be running clipless pedals on this bad boy. These clipless pedals came off the dumpster bike, as you can kind of see, maybe. But right there, the dumpster bike has been disassembled to make room for new bikes, new projects. So the clipless pedals from that bike are going to go on this bike. I've really enjoyed running clipless as of recently, and I think that if I do want to be somewhat competitive in this bike race, that clipless will actually benefit me. So I'm going to run clipless at least for all of my riding up until the race and for the race. After that, I might change it to flats just to be a little bit more accommodating for the rides that I want to do, and being able to, use it as somewhat of a commuter until I fully rebuild it as a commuter. But for now, clipless pedals. The cockpit's going to be pretty simple. We're sticking stock with the Dior LX brake lever shifter combo. The left-hand shifter is coming off because I am running 1x, but the right side is staying on. I've talked about how I don't necessarily love trigger shifters, but these trigger shifters are definitely significantly better than, the early 2000s, like low-end, like Atlas stuff, Tourney stuff. Like, those trigger shifters suck. These ones are actually okay, so I'm not upset about running the Dior LX trigger shifters on this bike. And one of the last things is the ESI Chunkies. ESI Chunkies, these are my pink ones. They've been on a lot of different bikes. They are definitely beat up and dirty, but they're still super solid, so they're going to end up on this bike, and I think they'll accentuate some of the colors in it. So beyond that, we just have to cable up the bike, and we are going to be throwing on these Dangle Bros cantilever brake hanger thingies for the brakes. So the Dangle Bros are going to be added onto this bike. And yeah. And with that, the bike is done. I wanted to take it out and actually ride it on a trail for the end of this video, but we got pounded with rain, so was unable to actually go ride any trails with it. But so far, I'm really enjoying this build. It's really fun to have a hardtail mountain bike, even if I am just doing urban riding. The riding position is a bit aggressive, but I don't mind that for, a race bike per se. And I think my one and only concern with this build is how wide the handlebars are. I have no idea what the Cactus Cup race course will look like, but if there are any narrow tree sections, I don't think I can get through them with how wide these handlebars are. Anyways, that's all for today, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next bike video. Bike guy out, baby.